All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is either week 4 or 5 of Mike coming on weekly, and we're going to get right into the red-white scrimmage and then talk about who we think should be in starting lineup for Wisconsin this season. But, Mike, we'll start with you. What are your initial takeaways after the red-white scrimmage?
Initially, man, they looked good. It's an early season test. It's the first time really seeing the bright lights of the Kohl Center and being in the gym with fans and other human beings, which adds a nice little dynamic. Guys can look really good behind closed doors when it's just coaches and your teammates. But adding that little element of pressure. I still remember my first red and white scrimmage. I was very nervous for it. And then you just kind of get more and more used to it. So definitely good to see those guys. A couple things I saw, they shot a ton of threes. So that up-tempo pace, space and shooting is going to be huge for them this season. I think they put up almost 44 in 32 minutes. They played 16-minute halves. So a lot of pace, a lot of space. Nick Boyd looks primed for a big season. Same with John Blackwell. You see the physicality of Blackwell coming in. He looked great. Same with Nolan Winter. And then I really like the fluidity of the younger big guys or the other big guys that they brought in. Rapp looked very fluid on a couple of catches, rolls. He had a nice roll, spin, bank shot off the right side. So it was good to see those guys, get out. And I know for them, they had a good time getting to play in front of some human beings and have a little bit of pressure on the line. So.
Yeah, Boyd, 21 points for Boyd out of his team's 46. So it was 46-44. Boyd's team got the win. And what sticks out to me with Boyd, 10 for 10 from the free throw line. So just like Tanjay, obviously much different players. Tanjay is a small forward wing. Boyd's going to be a point guard. But I think Boyd is a guy with his speed and his physicality. Being 24 will be 25 by the end of the school year. He's going to be a guy who gets to the free throw line a lot. And I think that's just a great thing. And I think he's going to be a guy who can touch the paint, great for himself, great for others. But yeah, Boyd, there's going to be a good chance that Boyd is the leading scorer of this team. And I think we talked about the trio last time of Boyd, Blackwell, and Winter. I'm optimistic that Rapp can kind of be of that echelon. He's only a sophomore. The other guy's a little bit older, but Rapp, what excites me about Rapp's box score in the red-white scrimmage is that he went 6 of 12 from the field. He only went 1 of 6 from 3, meaning that he made 5 of 6 from 2. And I like to see that because everyone knows that Rapp can shoot at a super high level, one of the better shooters at his size in all the country. So that's something that's super encouraging to me. And I want Rapp to get that starting 4-man spot, ideally. I think him and Winter can really, really complement each other really well. Having 6'10", 6'11", lengthy, mobile bigs who both can shoot, I think can create even more driving lanes for guys like Blackwell and Nick Boyd. And then the third guy is kind of where I'm thinking, like, who do I think is going to start? I think there's a pretty good chance that's going to be Andrew Rohde. But, yeah, that's my initial takeaways. I was super excited to see 10 free throws from Boyd. Rapp, he didn't shoot well from 3, but went 5 of 6 from the field. And then, yeah, overall, everyone shot pretty terribly from deep. 4 of 19 for the losing team, the white team. And then the red team went 6 of 25. And I assume they're going to shoot better. Braden Carrington went 1 of 7 from 3 in this. The transfer from Tulsa, spent 2 years in Minnesota. Ideally for me, he's not shooting 7 threes in a real game. But yeah, I think that's my initial takeaways. So, let's go, Mike. I can start us off. This is going to be my projected starting lineup. Then I'll let you you can follow off here. But for me, after just what I know of these guys right now, what I saw at the red-white scrimmage, I want Boyd to be the point. I want Blackwell to be the 2. I'm going to skip the 3-man spot for now. I'm going to go Rapp at the 4. And then at center, we're going to go Nolan Winter. And for the 3-man, I think it's highly likely that Rohde, the senior, the transfer from Virginia, is going to get that starting spot at one of the 2 wing positions. I'm fine with that. He's limited athletically. He's about 6'6", which is nice, and hopefully he can shoot. Sophomore, he had a good first year at St. Thomas. I'm going to look it up right now, but he had a good first year at St. Thomas. I had a real tough time transitioning to the higher level his sophomore year at Virginia. Junior year had a good season. But yeah, sophomore year at Virginia, 29% from the field, 25% from three. And then this last year he was much better, 43% from the field and 41% from three. So, and 77% from the free throw line after going only 43% the year before. But I feel like when you have a year where you only shoot 29% from the field and you play 25 minutes per game, you're a starter, only average 4 points per game, that tells me you're a bit limited athletically. And he's not the most athletic guy, but he can dribble, he can shoot, he can pass. I think he can be a solid, serviceable guy, but I'm a Janicki man. I like Janicki's athleticism. He's a sneaky athlete. If there's ever such thing as a sneaky athlete, it's Jack Janicki. He's longer than people realize. I think he's got long arms. He's quick. He can get up there. He has a baby face. I think people sleep on him a little bit, but he's a better athlete. He's scrappy. Hopefully he can shoot a little bit better than he did last year, but I think Janicki, he might be better off as a spark plug off the bench, but I kind of prefer his game over Rhodey's personally.
I completely understand. So for my starting five, and I think we have this exact same starting five. For me looking at it, Boyd, obviously the alpha, the number one. Then you got his co-alpha and John Blackwell. And for me, that's a really tough backcourt, especially in the Big Ten. The Big Ten's super deep, but that's a really, really good backcourt with a lot of experience. Blackwell coming off of a year where he averaged 15 a game. Nick Boyd played at FAU, played at San Diego State, been to a Final Four, led big teams, played in big games. So that's an older backcourt than a lot of teams will have. And then, at that three position, I'm actually a little bit higher on Rhodey. I've watched a little bit of film on him. And, when he was a freshman, he played up at St. Thomas in Minnesota. I know who coached him. So they, that program up there has really, really turned itself around. They're actually going to get a chance to go to the NCAA tournament this year for the first time ever, which is really cool. He won Freshman of the Year in a conference that, with a school that just transitioned to D1 when he won it. And then I'm not so concerned about the numbers dropping going from St. Thomas to Virginia. It's obviously a jump in, it's a big jump in competition level. The Summit League going from the Summit League to the ACC, as well as just a completely different shift of a role. I really like that he had a bounce back year. So he had a down year as a sophomore, but coming back and shooting 40% plus as a at the 3-point line really improved his averages. He doubled his scoring output, which tells me he figured some stuff out. Obviously the length and the speed of going from, a Summit League to an ACC. And that's something people really, unless you've been experienced in it, you really don't understand is mid-major guys, especially at the guard position. There isn't a whole lot of difference in terms of, guys who can play at Summit League level or guys who can play at, a Power 5 level. The biggest difference is the bigs. The biggest difference is just the sheer size of bigs. And sometimes it's challenging to figure out that length. It takes a little bit if you haven't played against it. So for me, I'm really encouraged by Rhodey coming off and he averaged, I think, over 4 assists a game last year, which is really cool to think about. Your 3-man is able to come out and average at least 4 assists a game, which means you can run pick and roll with him on both sides. So you have 3 guys with Boyd, Blackwell, and Rhodey being able to run pick and roll. And I do agree with you on Janicki. I think he's more athletic. And I really actually like Janicki coming off the bench as like you said, that spark plug. So for me, I have Rhodey going. With Rapp, he's given me some real Keaton Nankiville vibes. If you remember when I played Keaton Nankiville, but it's true. He was a real true stretch 4. He had 6'8", 6'9", super long arms, could finish around the rim. But when he was a senior, he led the Big Ten in 3-point percentage. And he was a knockdown 3-point man. He was a knockdown stretch 4. We had John Lure at the 5. So it's really interesting. I actually see a lot of comparisons and similarities between that front court back in 2011. Rapp, as well as, Rapp shot 35% on 7.5 attempts a game last year. That's a very high clip. That's a lot of shots. And when you shoot that many shots, it's not at that 40%, but, he was also pretty young. I think he was a freshman. Won Freshman of the Year, but that's only going to be a little bit more consistent a year removed an extra summer of shots, an extra summer of weights. So I really feel like he's going to kind of turn into that big stretch four for them. And then obviously Winter coming in, he's one of the highest draft prospects on this team. Added weight, he looks physically more imposing than he did a year ago, which is just great to see.
Yeah, and with the Rapp Nankivell comparison, the one thing is Nankivell is like extremely unselfish. Where like if he could have filled it up a little bit more than he did, just talent wise. And Rapp's a guy. I'm not saying he's selfish, but he's just super confident. Shooting 7.5. He had a green light last year. He was not shy at all to let it fly. In this game, he shot 6 threes. Like Rapp is gonna catch and he's gonna shoot. And then one other thing that I think we could see in his game is the potential to put the ball on the floor. I'm not saying he's going to be doing it a ton his first year in the Big Ten, but if you watch his highlights, if I remember right, watching his highlights, there's some moments where he put the ball on the floor, and it's like if you can shoot as well as him, you gotta chase and you gotta close out really hard on him. And if he can knock down a 3 or 2, they're closing out hard. He can put the ball down on the floor. I think that's a real possibility. So Rapp, I think, has just that dynamic, which just can make him really good and really complementary to Nolan Winter, which between a potential tandem of Winter and Rapp, at the 4-5, and then you go Boyd and Blackwell complement each other in the backcourt. Like we're talking about a team that actually sounds kind of scary. And then, it probably is better that Rhodey starts and Janicki's the spark plug. I'm just a big Janicki guy, and I want athleticism, But at the same time, Rhodey, if he's 6'6", and you shoot close to 40% from 3 with this ball handling, with this passing, he's got to start. He's just kind of a steady guy who probably makes more sense to start. I just enjoy Janicki's game a lot. So I think this team is going to be – they're looking really good to me. And – They got some respect. They're ranked 24th in the AP, and I don't want to get over the top. But I saw what Gard did last year with a team that everyone thought was going to be bad, and they're a 3 seed. And this great Gard is a different great Gard than when you were there. He's starting to get a little bit of swagger. If you're listening to his interviews, like he's coming off a bit more personable, and that just kind of comes with winning. And I think Gard is kind of coming into his own, and he's kind of forced to come out of his shell a little bit and show a little bit more personality. I'm going to ask you that, actually. Have you seen kind of a personality shift in Greg Gard? We've seen the philosophy shift from Bo Ryan, but have you seen Gard, it just has a little bit more swagger to him now?
Yeah, I mean, he's always kind of done things his own way, after I left the program, and I haven't spent too much time around it, but, some guys that are around him, and when he took over, there was a lot of he still has those principles that he learned from Coach Ryan. And then he just kind of made it his own. And he's continued to do that. He's continued to shift. He's continued to morph. As the game has changed, as the landscape of college basketball has changed. And I think he's done a good job of that. He's in his track record of bringing in guys, one thing that I think, for me, looking at college basketball, I don't know if there's been a coach that's come in that has had guys come into his program and immediately become successful out of the transfer portal, just like he has. He's had AJ Storr, John Tonje came in, even Johnny Davis came in as a freshman and a sophomore. He came in under his tutelage as a wing and, showed up right away. And that hasn't been, and even Micah Potter came in as a transfer too. You can kind of go down the line, and he's been able to integrate high-level transfers, which has been a struggle for a lot of college coaches.
There's been a lot of duds.
Yeah, you look at it, even just a great example is, he brought in AJ Storr, all Big Ten, all first team, and then, he thought, the grass is greener over here, and it clearly wasn't. And, he got the most out of guys. So, for me, it's Coach Gard has done a great job of, adding and learning and morphing into what's needed, and still keeping some of his principles as well. And I also think credit to him, he's brought in a lot of guys on staff that understand what Wisconsin wants to do, because they played there. They understand what's going on there. And those guys have had professional experience. I specifically look at the hire of Greg Steamsma. Greg Steamsma is a big. He played in the NBA as a big, even though he hardly ever played at Wisconsin. He was, a 6-man, a rotation guy, and then all of a sudden made a career in the NBA. And then he comes back, and I know for a fact he's working with those big guys, teaching them how to do defensive stuff, and helping them understand, hey, this is what you need to be able to do as a giant human. And so, that's one thing that I think Coach Gard has done a great job of filling out his staff as well as adjusting to the times.
Yeah, and so one other thing is Nick Boyd talking about. That's why I'm excited about Nick Boyd this year, is because Gard. You look at what Johnny's done professionally. You look at what AJ Storr did after Wisconsin. You look at what Tonje did at his other schools. They played their best basketball at Wisconsin. I'm fully expecting Nick Boyd to have his best year. He never averaged double digits at Florida Atlantic. San Diego State, really good year last year on 41% shooting from the field, 35% from three. He had averaged 13.4 points per game, 3.9 rebounds, 3.9 assists, 1 steal. I expect him to do better. I guarantee he's going to score more. That's going to be a bold prediction I make. I guarantee, despite going to the higher level, I really think Boyd is going to score even more than he did at San Diego State. So that's why I'm really fired up about this squad, because I think Gard's going to get every ounce of potential out of Boyd, and this team is just it's looking good. And then for me, seems like they have so many options coming off the bench this year. I have no idea who it's going to be, but it seems like they will have potential to choose who they want in the rotation, and there's going to be some good players who are not playing this year. So next week, we'll react to the Oklahoma game, and then we will also make our bold predictions for the season. But, Mike, let's just talk about the grind. You've been there. You've done that. Talk about the grind and the preseason for these players right now, and that carrot of having a game that seems forever, I'm sure, for these kids.
It's horrible. So it's really interesting. When you come into camp, it's really when you come into school, like you've gone through the whole summer, you get to go home, you get to go see your family, you kind of get to recharge and get away from the weight room and your teammates, because you've been kind of grinding all summer, and you get that nice little 3 to 4 week break, maybe a month, 3 weeks, depends on who you are and where you stay, and when you want to get back to school. But, I always remember getting back to school was always really exciting because people were on campus. And I remember, that first week was great. We're getting into school, we're getting into classes, human beings are around, the campus was super alive. And then, we always got that first week of, we call it syllabus week. You just got to hang out. You didn't really have to worry about, too much conditioning, preseason stuff. You maybe had a couple of lifts, but, your main goal was education. And then that second week, that second week is just zero fun, sir. You came back, you had been rested, and then all of a sudden the real work starts, that preseason grind. And if you've ever seen the movie Holes, how they speak about, they talk about it in the middle of the movie. It's like, man, the first hole is they always say like, oh, the first hole is always the easiest, because 1, you don't know how much work it is, and 2, the excitement of digging a hole fades away really quickly. And so that's the best analogy I can come up with. This preseason is, you're excited to be in there, you're excited to work, but then all of a sudden you go through one and you're like, oh man, this is a grind. And that's where they're at right now. They're in the doldrums of preseason. You've been at school, your classes are going, and you have been looking and facing off against the same dudes for almost a month and a half. And you have been and each of those practices are super intense, because this is the time where you're competing for minutes. You're trying to prove like, hey, I am better than this guy. And so those practices, those workouts are intense, and mentally it becomes kind of draining. It becomes, oh man, I've seen you, my best move. I know your best move. I know where you want to get to, where I want to get to. And you really, it's a time where you can grow as a player, but it's also a time where you're just like, dude, I'm tired of you. Like, I'm tired of this dude. Like, I have to deal with him bumping me. Oh man, there might be some fights that break out, especially in this part of the season, this part of the preseason. You've been going through 2-a-days, 3-a-days, you have to run that stupid hill.
Yes, sir. They do it at Bascom Hill now.
They do it at Bascom now, which I actually believe is a little bit better. It's a longer, more gradual slope, but
better.
You still actually on that stupid hill. It's not that
your
easy.
Hill's
it's
tougher.
just
Your hill is tougher for sure. I ran the hill once. It was hell.
Just yuck. Yeah. That still gives me the willies thinking about it. But yeah, that's kind of the thing with them is they're in this And the thing is now is I know they have a big. It's really odd. They have a really big preseason game against Oklahoma. Usually, you kind of get a little bit more of. Yeah, so it'll be a big preseason game, which is not normally. Normally, you play against D3 schools, D2 schools. They come in, you kind of tune yourself up. But I know that these guys, especially in this last week and a half, they're starting to breathe a little bit easier. Practices are becoming a little bit more normalized. Your schedule is a little bit more normalized in terms of where you go to classes and all that stuff. And there's much less physical demanding stuff in terms of, I know they do some plyometrics and the weight room stuff, and they get away from the hill, and it just becomes more and more basketball. So I know for them, this last week has been the worst part of the grind. I remember that those last couple of weeks of preseason were just like, all right, I'm done. I want to be over. I want to get into the season. I want to play. And it becomes easier as you get on because, you have games. It's exciting. People are talking about you. So I know for them that preseason is just yucky, especially this time of year. But hopefully, they can see the light at the end of the tunnel. And that red-white scrimmage was always like a big barrier for me. It was always like, all right, get to the red-white scrimmage, and then everything's kind of downhill from here.
Yeah, and you talk about the physicality and dealing with that. I feel kind of bad for the freshmen because think about it. You got 24-year-old Nick Boyd, you got John Blackwell, who's super physically solid, and then you have Brad Davison coming back and getting in the mix. Like, that's a lot of physicality you got to deal with on a day-to-day basis if you're these freshmen. Not your standard Wisconsin team, or just a college team in general to have that kind of physicality each day in practice. And then as we close this off, just saw a headline that said Terry Rozier and Chauncey Billups of the NBA arrested as a part of nationwide federal probe into illegal betting. So that's kind of insane. I love Chauncey Billups. I thought he was dope growing up, man. That's crazy to see. Any initial reactions to that?
Terry Rozier one is kind of expected. I knew that was looming. The head coach of the Portland Trailblazers being involved in that. Yeah. Did not know that. That's something that I knew did not know, and that's really interesting. Oh man, I love Chauncey Billups too. He was great. He played for the Timberwolves for a little bit before he moved on and was an elite point guard for the Detroit Pistons during those finals runs in 2003 and 2004 or 4 and 5. So that's disappointing. But also, I don't think that's the end of it.
Cool. All right, Mike, this was a great episode. For more content like this, hit that subscribe button. Goes a long way, and we will see you next week.